Staying connected matters. That's why AT&T has connectivity you can depend on, or they'll proactively make it right. That's the AT&T guarantee. Terms and conditions apply. Visit att.com/guarantee for details. AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Trudy Goodman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. Glad to be here.
I consider it a form of malpractice that you have not been on until now. I have no idea why that is, but I'm happy to be remedying it now.
Better late than never, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I heard something recently like, what's the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today.
Right. That's great. My friend Yvonne Rand, who had a Zendo in Muir Beach, she had some calligraphies from Suzuki Roshi, a Zen master of the last century who founded Tassajara and the San Francisco Zen Center. And it says, never say too late, which I think is a great teaching.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking to one of my ace producers, Marissa Schneiderman, about what we were going to talk about today, your answer was trusting yourself. And so I'm curious, why that?
I think that I picked that because for me, as a woman of my generation, coming to really trust myself in a world that didn't necessarily celebrate me and my accomplishments the same as some of my male colleagues at the time, learning to trust myself and my perceptions was really important, both professionally and personally. And one of the things that I've been writing about is what happens when you don't trust your perceptions. Like in my last marriage, that came up as an issue where I listened to my beloved instead of to my own intuition when I should have trusted my intuition. So trusting yourself, it feels central also to the project of living the best life that we can and waking up to be able to use all of who we are in the service of that life. I guess I just was very unconfident when I was young. You know, I was filled with self-doubt. And, and I know that you are interested in Buddhist practice, and we talk about the things, the strategies of disconnection from experience being greed and hate and delusion or ignorance, not in the sense of not having knowledge, but in the sense of ignoring what's actually happening. But I feel that for women, those three things should be more like low self-esteem, anxiety, self-doubt. These are the things that over really working with thousands of people over the last decades, I've seen in myself and in many of the people who come.
It may be more prominent among women, but I see myself in every single one of those
you do?
Alternative defilements that you just listed.
Alternative defilements. we have so many to choose from.
Yes, exactly. Right? The menu is vast. Anxiety is a huge feature of my life. Self-doubt,
yes.
Low self-esteem. I mean, at times, for sure. So, and I am in no way questioning the role of sexism in our culture in making that more acute among women, but it seems unisex on some level.
Well, I think that, we're humans together.
Yes.
And one of the benefits, I think, of beginning to trust yourself and trust your perceptions is you can start to see that commonality of human experience and not be so identified with your particular circumstances, situation, moment, all of those things. And also, I feel like for meditation practitioners, people who really want to learn to meditate, trust is really important. Trust in what you see, hear, taste, smell, touch. My first teacher was a Korean Zen teacher, Venerable Sung San, Sansanim we used to call him. And we were, in a gathering where he gave a talk and then people asked him questions and he was always teaching us to have great faith. And somebody asked him, what is great faith? And he held up his pinky And he said, do you see this? Do you see this, Dan?
I do.
This is great faith. So that's a very Zen, condensed way of saying, trust what you see, trust what you hear. And it's also good meditation practice because then you ground yourself in this moment, what you see, hear, taste, smell, touch, think, feel right now. And that's the most trustworthy and powerful. This moment, this day, is the most powerful one. We know this because the future is a dream that hasn't happened yet, and the past, very dreamlike.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, we travel a lot these days, and when I think of 2 nights ago where I was and who I was with, this wonderful teacher, colleague of mine that I've been blessed to teach with, Anam Tupten. And I think, was that only 2 days? It has a dreamlike quality. And one of the great meditation instructions that I think is useful for all of us to begin to develop some equanimity about our experience is just think of all of it as a dream. Because tomorrow, our being together, which feels so clear and vivid right now, it's going to feel dreamlike.
Your husband, Jack, used to have I don't know if it's still his auto signature on his email, but it's from the Diamond Sutra that you should think of all of life as a flickering lamp and a dream. And
so you should view this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. Yeah, that's the end of the Diamond Sutra.
And so what you're saying, I think, is that given that there's so many aspects of modern life that militate against intuition and trusting ourselves because we are thrown into a state of toxic comparison to other people via social media because some of us, depending on what type of body we occupy, the culture is telling us that we may be hysterical or wrong or because we are disconnected from our bodies because most of the time we're in our phone. There are many ways in which we are not listening to the rhythm and music of being alive, to our bodies, to the world around us. And I think what you're saying, if I'm defining the problem correctly, if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the remedies is basic mindfulness, mindful awareness, trusting the reality of what's happening right now, the sensations in your body, the activity in your mind.
Yes. Thank you. You said that much faster than I did.
It's much easier to sum up than to articulate in the first place, just to be clear.
And also, when you look at what is the point, people talk about enlightenment or awakening, and what is that, too? I mean, is that some story about the future that I'll be there someday? Or is that something that only special other people get to experience? So trusting that who you are and your life in this moment has all the ingredients you need to be fully awake. That's another piece of it. That's a maybe deeper dive into what trust can be. That we just let all those things that, what did you call it? The menu of defilements, the things that get in our way, let them just loosen their grip a little bit and dissolve a little bit so that we're not constantly looking at everything through the lens of me. How is this going to benefit me? How is this threaten me? How is this going to advance? All of that. It's like looking at the sky through a straw. So I think trusting that the contents of this right now, us here together, are the contents of our awakening. Where else would it be happening? Okay,
so I'm hearing 2 things. I just want to make sure
I'm enjoying your summing up. Go for it.
It's really because I think one of the reasons why I've had, in my opinion, one of the reasons why I've had some success as an interviewer is I'm a little bit dumb, and I need to make sure I understand things for myself.
Well, it's a kindness to your listeners, too.
Yes, well, there's them too.
I mean, they're here with us, too.
They are asynchronously, but they're definitely here with us. Okay, so there's not trusting yourself in the, let's call it conventional term of I'm disconnected from my, and I use this term poetically, my heart, listening to my body, listening to my intuitions.
Your feelings, your emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mindful awareness, present moment awareness, just basic understanding of what's happening right now is a non-negotiable building block toward learning how to trust yourself. But you're also saying that on a deeper level, if we want to get enlightened, and I'm not sure how many listeners are even entertaining that notion, but if we want to have some sort of profound spiritual progression, even in that word progression is where we get mixed up.
That's right. That's right.
Because
you caught it.
Yes. It feels like we're building to something, but if you're going to get enlightened, it's always going to be
It's always going to be here.
Yes.
It's only ever going to be here.
Yeah.
And I think I just am trying to, in a sense, make a little more accessible the idea of enlightenment or awakening, or that this is not something that people should assume is only for other people, because we all have the innate capacity for awareness. We have this. We're born with the ability to be conscious. And that is an amazing gift. Maybe one of the most overlooked gifts that we have is this just gift of consciousness, that we get to have perceptions and be awake and alive and conscious. And the other thing that I think is also, it's one of our overlooked human superpowers, is that we can direct our attention wherever we want. We're not really taught about that, how to do that. It's not part of our training. It wasn't part of our parents' or grandparents' training to teach us how to do that. But that's also really important, especially when things are hard.
Let me just stay with enlightenment for a second. And in the Buddhist sense, to the extent that I understand it, enlightenment is often defined as the uprooting of greed, hatred, and delusion.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just no longer experiencing negative emotions. And wait, you're making a face like I might have put a foot.
Well, I would just stop right there.
Okay.
It's not that you don't experience negative emotions.
Right. You're not identified with them.
Exactly.
You're not clinging to them.
Exactly.
Right. So we think of an enlightened person as she or he is floating through the world, pixie dust trailing from their rear end, and we think, well, that's not something that I can achieve. And what I think you're saying is actually right now, if you are in your body, pleasant or unpleasant or otherwise, you are not in the spinning stories of your head, which are...
They may be spinning, but you're not caught in them.
You're not caught in them. And that's an awakening right there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I know, as far as that fantasy of, tripping through the tulips, pixie dust, all of that, I've had the pleasure of studying with some of the most revered meditation, we don't say masters anymore, meditation teachers in the world, and they're not like that. None of them. They're just not. Maybe I haven't met, but I have. I've met people who really are very awakened, and the ones that I love are very honest about their experience, that they're still human. They have humanness. Somebody asked a late great Japanese Roshi, Maizumi Roshi, he was giving a talk, and a man was in the audience who was just very, very drunk. And he was very provocative. And he said, "So Roshi, what's it like to be enlightened?" And Roshi looked at him and said, "Very depressing." And I love this story because in that moment, he was looking at somebody quite troubled. And it was sad. Do you see what I'm saying?
My wife has a tattoo on her left arm that says, "Right now it's like this."
Yes, exactly. So in that moment, that's what it was like.
And so in any moment, if we're in touch with what it's like, that's a form of enlightenment.
I like to use the word awakening because it's
Awakening.
less fraught than
Yeah, I guess that's true.
enlightenment.
Yes.
Enlightenment has this once and for all quality, and some of the texts seem to promise that, and it can be really confusing. I love, Jack gives a talk called Enlightenments, plural.
Yes, I've heard that talk.
Yeah.
I've read the essay, actually.
You know, that to me makes more sense. So I like to say awakening because the whole point is to stay awake. And nobody, maybe outside of retreat, protected circumstances, could say that they really awake 24/7, that they never get distracted and unmindful, even for a moment. I certainly can't say that.
I can't say it either.
Yeah.
Let's just go back to the beginning of this discussion. We were
Yes.
talking about trusting yourself, and you talked about your history of not trusting yourself. And we established that the first step on this path is to hone your capacity just to be awake. I'm wondering, is that necessary but not sufficient? What is required after you've learned how to wake up a little bit in your life? What else might be required in order to have trust and confidence in yourself?
I think to be more ecumenical about it, I really love a talk. Pope Francis gave a TED talk in 2017. And in that, I was so struck by it that I actually took some notes of it. In that talk, he said, what we really need is a revolution of tenderness in the world. We have to talk sequentially because we live in linear time, but it would ideally be together. That next step that you talk about, to me, would be infusing awareness with some tenderness or kindness or love. If you really practice staying awake, it will come naturally, because what you begin to see is, as I was talking about earlier, the humanness, that we're humans together, shared humanity, and those things that get in the way of our realizing our shared humanity, they tend to fall away somewhat. And when you start to be able to see that, you naturally feel a kind of, I don't know, it is like a kind of compassion. Like, look, we're in this together. We were born in these bodies, and we live in these bodies, and we're vulnerable in these bodies. So we're in this together. And I'm at a stage of life where I say, our bodies age. You know, I could look in the mirror today and say, fine, let's stop right here. I'm good.
I'm good, meaning I don't want to keep changing, or
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. I don't want to, I'm fine. I don't need to get older. I'm fine right here.
I'm as old as I want to
I'm
be.
as old as I want to be. I'm old enough to have a little experience of life, a little wisdom, a little tenderness. I'm good right here. But it's kind of like saying I really want to keep my baby teeth.
Yeah.
They're so cute. I don't want those serrated permanent teeth to come in.
The word that Stephen Batchelor, the Buddhist writer, who I believe studied with the same Korean Zen master that
He
you
did.
referenced earlier, the word he sometimes uses in this regard is poignancy.
It's a beautiful expression. I love that word, and I love where he uses it in that Intimations of the Sublime chapter in, I forget the name of his book.
Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist?
No, it's...
Or Buddhism Without Beliefs?
no, it's even another one.
After the Buddha? Those are the three books by him that
They're
I know.
all good. They're all good. It'll come back.
After Buddhism is actually one of his books by...
It was before that one.
Okay.
But I think poignancy is a beautiful word to describe the bittersweetness of our existence as humans together. And I have this quote that I want to read because it has to do, again, with this sense of what is awakening? What does it mean? This is a quote from Helen Prejean, and she is the one who the movie Dead Man Walking was made about her.
Yeah, she was a nun.
Yes, she was a nun. And she said, and I love this, she said, my whole faith now is making love present in the world and letting love be in my life. What counts now is being with people, especially those people who are most excluded, death row inmates and their families. That was her mission, to work with the most excluded, feared, probably maybe hated people. And when I was talking earlier about just letting the self as a point of reference loosen up a little bit, I think of that. I think of, oh, how can Sharon Salzberg wrote a book with the most beautiful titles. It was called A Heart as Wide as the World. Like, how can I just be more, embrace more and more and more of the good, the bad, the ugly, hold all of it in my heart with some tenderness. I feel like that's a really beautiful way to live.
But I could see a potential misunderstanding and perhaps even a potential pitfall in here. Because if
Okay.
you're saying that one way to trust and confidence in yourself is through increasing your love quotient, people who have low self-esteem can fall into sort of ruinous, toxic altruism where they're people-pleasing as opposed to having a healthy relationship.
Well, I think that's a huge pitfall, is imagining that you're supposed to love other people more than yourself, that put other people first. And a lot of spiritual teachings do actually encourage that. And having healthy boundaries and knowing what is my limit, where am I going to start to feel I'm overgiving and resenting it? I mean, this is an issue for every parent, certainly, to consider. I'm coming back to a story from the Buddhist scriptures, the teachings. And this is a story, you probably know it, about King Pasenadi, Kosala, and his wife, Queen Malika. And I think Malika asks him first, who do you love? And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a little bit of Snow White too. Like, who do you love the most in the world, right? Who do you love the most? He says, I think myself. And then he says, well, Your Majesty, how about you? Who do you think is the dearest one to you? And she reflects and she said, I would have to say myself. And then they're a little bit, maybe a little freaked out because it's not very romantic. And they go and they talk to the Buddha, and the Buddha says, there is no one on this earth more worthy of your love than you yourself. He's not saying there's anyone less worthy. He's really saying it's okay to take care of yourself. It's not only okay, it's really the foundation, like trusting yourself. So when I talk about love, I don't just mean being selfless, and that can devolve into being a doormat or overgiving, which I certainly have done in my life. And there's a lot of the spiritual teachings that kind of condition you to do that. And that's where I think Western psychology has a huge contribution to make, where we really learn about how to be a healthy self.
Few things feel better than knowing someone's looking out for you. That is the spirit behind the AT&T Guarantee. Staying connected matters. That's why AT&T has connectivity you can depend on, or they will proactively make it right. That's the AT&T Guarantee, because connection should be dependable, especially in the moments that matter most. Terms and conditions apply. Visit att.com/guarantee for details. AT&T, connecting changes everything. Let's be honest, shopping, not my thing. I like having nice clothes, but I really don't like going to the store and waiting in line and trying on lots of stuff and dealing with all of the choices, and also being reminded that many things that look good don't actually fit me. And that's just the in-store experience. The online experience for me can be super frustrating as well, because I'll order 3 sizes of the same shirt hoping one fits, and then I'm too lazy when none of them fit to return everything. That's why I'm recommending you check out Stitch Fix. You just take a quick style quiz, share your size, your vibe, and your budget, and boom, you're matched with a real human stylist who handles the rest. They send you a fixed book with clothes that actually fit and make sense for your life, work, weekends, whatever. It saves you time, you look great, and you don't even have to think about it. It's no risk, all style. Try it all on in the comfort of your own home. Keep what works, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns always, and no subscription required. Plus, you get a free try-on for your first fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/happier and get 20% off your first order when you buy 5 or more items. That's stitchfix.com/happier. What does self-love look like to you? Because speaking of pitfalls, one pitfall or misunderstanding when it comes to self-love could be narcissism.
Of course. Of course. Self-love does not look like being self-referential in the way that I was talking about earlier, where you just, everything is, all roads lead to yourself, basically. If you tell me something and I'll just link it right back to me and my experience. You know, what's that joke? How are you doing? How are you feeling about me? Or I forget it, something like that.
I'm thinking of the Woody Allen joke where he says, masturbation is sex with someone I love.
Exactly. So, okay, it can devolve into things like that. In some of the texts, they talk about self-cherishing as a really bad thing because they're really talking about being selfish and only thinking more, you know, as I said, always about yourself instead of about yourself and the other. Yourself in a relational context, a context of whether it's family or group or community or country or, you know, planet, world, but yourself in a relational context. And I think of self-love as respect. Self-respect is probably a better word. Having self-respect. Because if you really have self-respect, you're not going to be harming yourself so easily. For example, people who fall into addiction, self-respect is a helpful way out among 12-step and many other supports for getting sober.
The self in the Buddhist context is such a tricky
It
notion.
is so tricky, and everybody gets their knickers in a twist about that one. Because self, subject, object, you know, they're kind of one thing at a certain point with perception. But this is getting into the weeds. I don't think we have to worry about it. The sense of me is not going to go away. It's just, is that always in charge of everything I do? I'm not trying to annihilate myself. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think that is this is becoming a theme. Another pitfall or misunderstanding of the Dharma is a self-annihilation.
Yes.
It becomes a kind of self-hatred. It can become that.
And listen, again, one of the things, I've worked with thousands of people, both as a psychotherapist and a meditation teacher, because at this age, you know, I've been doing this for 50 years. And so practicing and studying and then later teaching, if there's one thread, it's people are so hard on themselves. And self-hatred is always a possibility. That's where I think the loving kindness practices and the joy practices, you know, really deliberately cultivating joy. What is it Wendell Berry said? Be joyful even though you've considered all the facts.
I love that. That's really good. I'm writing that down.
Yeah. It's from, I think, The Mad Farmer. He says, put your faith in the 2 inches of humus. Oh, not humus. I'm sorry. Not hummus. I promise I'm not hungry. Humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Hear the songs that are yet to come. This is my favorite part. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. And I think that's one of the ways that we can steady our hearts in uncertain times, you know, is to cultivate joy. These little moments, the moments of laughter together, the moments that Thich Nhat Hanh called the non-toothache. How many times are we grateful and happy that we don't have a toothache? Yeah. And then he also said another important thing in terms of steadying the heart in uncertain times. One of our InsightLA teachers, InsightLA is the nonprofit that I founded here in Los Angeles. One of our teachers, Lien Chi Tran, is Vietnamese, and she came on a very traumatic boat to escape from Vietnam. And Thich Nhat Hanh always said about the people who had to escape in those boats and pirates and storms and very vulnerable and overcrowded. And he always said, if one person in that boat could stay calm, everybody in that boat had a better chance of survival. And I think, you know, our boat is small here in this world, but if we can just stay calm and appreciate the non-toothache moments and cultivate joy, I do believe we're really helping the world.
And I'm curious about how that redounds to trusting yourself. Would the mechanism be there that if you're calm, you have a regular IV drip of joy, that you're less caught up in the culture's messages to you about how you shouldn't trust yourself?
Yes, and you're better able to discern what's actually going on. And you're less distracted. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about intuition because that's very linked to trusting yourself. I was at a gym in a class, and the teacher said, let's go. We were going to do these sideways leaps, like preparing for snowboarding. I mean, I was already 75. I was not going to go snowboarding, but I loved the class.
Just to say, you don't look 75.
Well, I'm not anymore.
I know.
I'm
but
79 and 3/4.
Yes, I know.
The older you get, and who knows, by the time people listen to this, I might even be 80, but it's like kids. The older you get, you start counting 3/4. So she took us outside on a cement sidewalk to do these leaps. And as we went outside, I heard a distinct voice in my head that said, let's skip this one. And I wanted to do it. And I was going really fast. And my foot caught in a little crack in the sidewalk. And I slammed down and broke my back. Every time I override my intuition, it's a disaster. And for your intuition to talk to you, you need to trust your perceptions and be listening a little bit. By listening, I just mean being present. Because I was distracted by, oh, yeah, let's go. Instead of it was not a subtle message. I do not always hear voices. That was maybe one of the only times, a few times in my life. But there was another time. And I'm telling this story because when I emerged from my last divorce, and yes, I have had more than one, when I emerged from my last divorce from somebody I adored, a wonderful Zen teacher, we were co-teachers. I mean, our lives were completely entwined. But there were problems toward the end of our marriage, and I had intuitions about them. But when I would talk to him, he would look me in the eye and talk to me, and he was so clear, and I loved him, and it didn't cross my mind that he was lying to me. Mm-hmm. But he was. He felt he needed to. And I'm not judging or explaining or excusing. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I overrode my intuition.
Right.
And so when we went apart, Dan, I thought, how am I ever going to trust myself again? Over and over, I just steamrolled over my trusting my intuition. And how am I going to choose a partner ever again? Certainly, this is the end of my love life, blah, blah, blah. My mind telling me all these very sad stories. And I'm sharing this because I think a lot of people might wonder, how do you discern that inner voice from fear? Is it the voice of fear or is it trustworthy intuition? What I did was I started to just listen. And if it meant suddenly veering off my path to stop at a coffee shop because I had that random idea, I did it. I listened. I had a dream about some cousins that I hadn't seen forever. And I called them. I visited them. I think we were all wondering why I was there. But the point was to listen to that impulse because it wasn't a fearful one. It was just my way of signaling, and other people, you can try this, signaling, I'm here and I'm listening to the messages that are appearing in my consciousness. And not long afterwards, I was a resident teacher for the Santa Fe Insight meditation community. And I was invited to co-teach with my beloved colleague, Phil Arano, with whom I founded this Institute for Meditation and Psychotherapy, the first one in the world, and we really were close. The conference was in Fort Myers, Marco Island, Florida, and you had to fly into Fort Myers. So I was at that time living in New Mexico. We met. He was from Boston. We met in Fort Myers. We drove down together. We taught for the week with a couple of colleagues, and then it was time to drive back to the airport. And I didn't want to get in the car. And I didn't have a premonition. There was nothing, I just had this feeling. But because I was doing this practice of listening to my body, which my body didn't want to get in the car, I didn't get in. And you may have guessed the end of this story, which is really tragic, which is that I had to drive back with another colleague. It was inconvenient. He said, well, I'll go with Phil. You take my rental car. I said, I can't. I'm not on the contract. So he grudgingly stayed with me. I think I just said, well, I want to go for one more swim before we go back to winter. And Phil was killed in a head-on collision on the way to the airport. I would have been sitting right next to him. A truck crossed the median and just plowed into the oncoming traffic, driven by a 15-year-old without a license. And Phil, so I feel like trusting my intuition literally saved my life. And I think that's maybe to come right around to the beginning of this this conversation, maybe that's why I place so much emphasis on trust.
A moment ago, you talked about the fact that some people get hung up on, like, how do you know, if you're listening to yourself, how do you know you're not just listening to the fear voice? I haven't read it, but there's a book called The Gift of Fear that some female friends of mine have referenced to me because apparently in this book, it talks about the fact that sometimes our bodies are trying to...
Oh, listen, fear is our friend.
Okay.
Sure. And part intuition can reveal itself as fear, too. If I don't know. I mean, what is the classic example? In a dark alley alone, and I feel fear, I need to look behind me. I need to look around. Right? It's our warning system. So I'm not saying don't have fear. I'm just saying sometimes the messages that we might be hearing might be fearful thoughts as opposed to trustworthy intuitions.
Right.
That's the distinction that I was meaning to make.
Just to complicate this even further, sometimes what may seem like intuition is in fact bias and bigotry.
Yes, it is. And that's, again, where I think these practices of awareness come in so that we can begin to notice when we have those kinds of biases. And sometimes we can't. They're invisible to us because of the way we were brought up or our conditioning in different ways. And that's why we need community. That's why we need each other. I need you to say to me, I think that thought or what you're saying is biased. I think you're expressing a certain kind of bias here, or prejudice, or judgment, or something that might not be so wise. We need each other for so many things. And that's why I really, community is power. We're very vulnerable and powerless without each other.
I think of what I'm hearing you say, to bring it back to the central theme of this conversation, is that in an interesting way, this is a bit of a bank shot, but in an interesting way, having a good community, a healthy community, can help you trust yourself.
Absolutely.
Because they're calling bullshit on you.
Yes, exactly. Once again, you've said it faster and probably clearer. But listen, Dan, I really appreciate you because I have intense ADD. My mind is like a fountain of ideas and so to have somebody corral me and sum it up is a big, fat gift.
Oh, we should do more of this then.
Thank you.
This is like the only skill I have, so we're a good match in this way.
I need to keep you with me.
Sure.
Every time I have to give a talk.
I do actually want to go back to something you said a while ago, and it's kind of linked to community. And I'm not sure I'm going to recapitulate it accurately, but it was something about how being loving, having good relationships, can loosen the grip of self in a way.
Yeah.
And which I totally agree with. And then I was thinking, okay, well, that actually could help with trusting yourself because you're loosening a grip on the sort of less healthy aspects of self and better able to hear the sort of truer, more honest aspects of yourself. Am I in the neighborhood of accuracy? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And one of the things I wish is that as a community of humans, that we would be more Not just calling each other on our bullshit, but listening to each other and being curious. Why do you believe this bullshit? I think it's bullshit. You really believe it. I'd like to know more about that, what it means to you. Because without dialogue and conversation, I don't see how we're going to make peace in this world. And we need to. We kind of urgently need to. So I feel that's also really important. And it's one of the factors of awakening. You know, we have these 7 factors of awakening. Mindfulness is the fulcrum. And then there's these sort of energizing aliveness ones on one side, which would be joy and effort, and investigation is one, curiosity, right? Interest. Then there's calm, tranquility, which is also concentration, samadhi. Mm-hmm. And then there's equanimity on the calming side. And equanimity contains wisdom, because equanimity, the root meaning of equanimity is looking upon, having that bit of space between the skull and the brain where you can observe your experience, witness. And that witness consciousness, we sometimes call mindful awareness, loving awareness. Different traditions have different names for it. But it's really key to being able to catch ourselves and also be honest, so that if let's say you call me out on some bullshit of mine, instead of getting defensive, I have a choice. I could actually get curious and say, maybe that's true. Maybe he's right. And then look into my own mind and see, could that be true? Could that be right? It's just another way that I feel being present and awake and helps us be in relationship with each other. And certainly having some kindness or being disposed towards some tenderness also helps. Because I'm not ready to pounce on you when you say something I don't like.
You pounced when I started misstating the truth of enlightenment and / awakening earlier.
Did I pounce?
No, you didn't really.
I didn't really pounce.
In your defense. You're taking us somewhere maybe a little counterintuitive and maybe even somewhat discomforting for some listeners. I think that's where you're taking us, because we're talking about trusting yourself, and we live to state a truism in divided and polarized times. It seems like partly what you're advising us to do as part of trusting ourselves is to re-examine our opinions and views.
Well, to have the confidence to be curious about someone else whose opinions and views differ from ours, and whose opinions and views we might hate or strongly disagree with. I was at a neighbor's house, and I said, I had listened to a political commentator that I don't agree with at all.
You willing to say who this person is?
Okay, so I was listening to Tucker Carlson.
Okay.
And I then was so interested in what he was saying that I subscribed to his newsletter thing, because I thought, I never hear people in my bubble, due to the algorithms and the social connections, I never hear people believing the things that Tucker Carlson believes. So I said to my neighbor, have you ever listened to Tucker Carlson? And she said, why would I do that? With a kind of sneer, which could have been me another time. But I thought, we need to actually get curious and try to, claw our way out of the silo the algorithms put us in.
Yes. To
hear what other people are saying. And even if it sounds outlandish to us, to realize, okay, a lot of people believe this. And then, can I talk to some of them? Can I listen? Can I be open? I know that if we exchanged pictures of our kids, or if we talked about what it was like to lose someone we loved, we would be completely on the same page. So how do we drift so far apart? Or more importantly, how do we get back together?
Right. You know those moments when someone just takes care of something for you? That's what AT&T is doing with the AT&T Guarantee. Staying connected matters. That's why AT&T has connectivity you can depend on, or they will proactively make it right. That's the AT&T guarantee. Because staying connected isn't optional, it's essential. And AT&T wants you to feel that somebody's got your back. Terms and conditions apply. Visit att.com/guarantee for details. AT&T, connecting changes everything. I was talking to my doctor the other day about this long-time issue I've had with nighttime restlessness, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And I was able to mention to her, hey, I got these blood tests through Function recently, and it showed that I'm low in this one thing, and that could be a contributor. And actually, we're now in the middle of chasing that lead down. I chose Function because it's the only health platform that gives me data most people never get, and the insights to start doing something about it. Inside Function, you get access to test over 100 biomarkers, from hormones to toxins to markers of heart health, inflammation, and stress. It's a near 360 view to better see what's happening inside your body. For many of us, there's nothing that the voice in our head obsesses over like health. But with over 100 lab tests and insights, Function can help answer questions like, why am I so tired all the time? How do I get better sleep? Should I be taking supplements? How do I know if my heart is healthy? Does my work stress affect it? These are all questions I personally have. Function is the key to getting some answers and understanding your body better. A Function membership gives you a comprehensive health check with results tracked over time. Getting blood work done through Function is the first step toward finding out what you're made of and helping you understand what it takes to live a longer, healthier life. Learn more and join using my link. Function is a near 360 view to see what's happening inside your body, and my first 1,000 listeners get a $100 credit toward their membership. Visit www.functionhealth.com/happier, or just use the gift code HAPPIER100 at sign up to own your health. I've had a sort of round trip on this same issue, just to tell a little story on my
Please,
side.
please.
I really fancied myself to be a quite even-handed and fair-minded journalist, and spent a lot of time interviewing everybody from cult leaders to terrorists to murderers to people who are on the completely different side of the...
Many people you disagree with.
Yes. And I think with some justification, that I treated everybody fairly.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's not totally untrue. But Trump undid me. And I realized when Trump appeared on the scene that I had lost, I think objectivity is not even, that's an unattainable standard, but I had lost some sort of balance.
Yeah.
So I went on a mission in around 2016, 17, 18, 19 to just, I never really got into Tucker Carlson, but I started listening to, one example would be Ben Shapiro, who's a very popular right-wing podcaster. I in fact got so interested in him, I went and interviewed him. And I still to this day retain this practice of listening across the spectrum.
That's great.
And at first it was really disorienting. I felt like a kind of self-gaslighting.
That's a great expression. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really what it felt like. And it was bumpy.
That's called delusion right there.
Well,
that's ignorance, delusion. Self-gaslighting would be part of that.
Yes.
But I want to hear the story.
Well, there's not that much more to it other than that eventually what I came to see is there's a difference between your opinions and your values. And so
Right.
I got much looser around my opinions on the issues du jour, but much more confident in my, nobody's going to talk me out of my view that cruelty is uncool.
Same here. Nobody's going to talk me out of the idea that, a drug addict shouldn't be in charge of the treasury. I believe that. And I'm not going to unbelieve that. But I still want to learn. It's a life koan right now. It's really a huge question. How do we come back together and relate to each other when cruelty is happening?
Yes. And so, and even more sort of acutely for this discussion, a life koan is, how do you retain your curiosity about people with whom you disagree without taking off the table your right to say,
I
this is wrong.
disagree.
Yeah, this is.
This is
I'm not
not
down with this.
what
Yeah.
happened.
Yes, and in some ways, to take it back to trust and self trust and self confidence, like you actually, this is a bit of an advanced practice. I think is like you need to have a little bit of a foundation of self trust before you
venture into those waters. Absolutely.
before you start ingesting a bunch of
Absolutely, because, it's very convincing. And again, this has very much to do with the algorithms and what we see. People say, well, I've done my research, but the research that they did is flawed. And we have an issue with that today that I won't go into, but this is where science is really important and scientific method is really important. And where we have the we have the ability today to merge the practices of the heart and awareness with science. Because lots of things are being known about the brain and learned about the brain. Those are real things. For example, we know that a lot of power, damages certain parts of the brain, the empathic centers of the brain. Dr. Kelly, he's proved it behaviorally. I also don't want to end this without doing a little bit of practice of some kind together with people. I know that people who are listening or watching, they might be in their cars, they're going about their day. They're not necessarily going to stop and close their eyes and meditate. But I think I have a practice that people can just do wherever they are.
in a free range style.
Yeah.
But you want to describe it?
Well, why don't we do it?
Let's do it.
Let's just do it.
Okay.
First, I want to encourage everybody to take just 3 deep breaths. I'm going to close my eyes and do it. You don't have to close your eyes because I don't know where you are at this moment. But I'm just going to relax my body. 1, 2. I'm just breathing in the aliveness of this moment and breathing out any tension, letting myself relax with that out breath. And then taking a moment to just enjoy the feeling of being present and a little bit relaxed. And notice if there are feelings of heaviness or tension or any kind of sadness or difficulty that you may be holding in your body. To just notice that. You can do it. You can do this any way that you are. And then see if you can kind of relax around that a little bit and name it. Oh, just gently acknowledging, oh, this is sadness, or this is worry, or this is grief, this is anger. Just making room for it to be here. Because when we make room for us to feel our feelings fully, they will change. They inevitably change because everything does. And then just for a moment, breathing in some kindness. Imagine your breath as you breathe. And again, you don't have to be sitting still like we are, but imagine your breath as your most loving, faithful companion. After all, it's always here for you. And just letting your breath, the ebb and flow of your natural rhythm of breathing, just breathing in that trust that your breath will always be here as long as you're alive, and breathing out that sense of connection, kindness, compassion. Maybe sending out your breath to everyone who's suffering at this moment in this life. And if that's you, remembering you're not alone in this. And then once again, just breathing in and experiencing the breath as loving you, taking care of you, even gently caressing you a little bit when you can really sense and feel it. So you're breathing in the caring of the breath. You're breathing out some caring for this life, for anyone who's suffering, for yourself. And then finally, call to mind a moment of joy or pleasure. It can be a little moment. Somebody gave me a kind smile earlier today. I loved it. Could be the sunrise. Could be the sound of raindrops, or you heard somebody laughing, children playing, whatever uplifts you. Just call that to mind and just remember joy. Remember joy. Because when we talk about these moments of disconnection with ourselves, with each other, with our country, with our leaders, whatever it might be, I think we're being asked not to turn away in frustration or despair, but to hold each other close, to take this moment, it can be any moment, to just take a deep breath, breathing in the caring, the love that is available to us, if it's only the breath being our most faithful companion. And then just breathing out, relaxing, and opening to connecting with others. So that's a practice that I want to offer, just to remember that joy and love, they are always here, even though they may get so buried by our distress.
You use the word disconnection, and the thought that came up for me is that we have a culture-wide separation anxiety that's happening right now. We're disconnected from ourselves. We're disconnected from each other. Given that connection is the sort of apex of what it means to be a human, it is the essence of what it means to be a human. That is a recipe for disaster on a micro scale with the epidemic levels of individual anxiety and depression, or a
and
macro
loneliness.
scale, and loneliness, and a macro scale with the division that we're seeing in the country.
Yeah.
And so with that practice was kind of like a remedy for separation anxiety.
It's remembering.
Yes.
And the classic definition of mindfulness is remembering.
Mm-hmm.
You know this. And how do we remember? We have to put down our devices for a minute, maybe a few minutes. Walk outside, look at the sky. Stand under a tree. If it's not too snowy, lie down for a minute on the ground and just feel the energy of the earth. I mean, really, it's our birthright to be part of nature. And nature is an ally, and it doesn't have to be the wilderness, it could be in the city. Just being outside for a few minutes, looking at the sky is usually possible, even in New York. There's some slivers of sky that you can look at. There's a little something poking out of the sidewalk. Soon there are going to be tulips,
Duncan Trussell, the comedian who has his own podcast and has been on this show, calls you Trudy the Love Barbarian. What does that mean?
Okay, so Duncan did something really cool. He took his podcasts with several spiritual teachers, and he, in connection with a colleague and Netflix, they made a series called The Midnight Gospel, and it's cartoons. And so episode 4 features a character called Trudy the Love Barbarian. She carries a rose in her mouth, and she can be very fierce. And it's so fun because I got to be the voice of Trudy the Love Barbarian, and the dialogue is from our podcast that we did, stuff I said. And so, I'm riding along on my horse, and then I'm saying these things about forgiveness, and then I slice the head off somebody who's an opponent. I mean, it's just fun. It's fun. Some of it's like 14-year-old fun, but it's fun. And I have to say, I loved doing it. And I want to put this out because doing voiceover, you don't have to worry about hair or makeup or anything. You go in a booth and you act, and they tell you what to do. Scream. No, louder. You just do it. It's so fun. So I want to say to anybody watching or listening, if you need a voiceover artist, I'm here. And I would love to do it. And, it's kind of fun, like discovering late in life something that you're good at that you had no idea ever that you would be good at it. It was great.
I feel guilty. I've never watched it. So I do need to watch it.
Well, I have to feel even guiltier because I didn't watch all of it. I
watched your bits.
Well, I watched up till my bit.
I see.
And then some of the graphics were so graphic. And I just thought, I'll listen to more later.
And then they put out a new show and you started binging that, and there you go. You talked about forgiveness there, and I'm just curious, this might be a good place to end it, or maybe it's not. What connection, if any, is there between forgiveness and trusting yourself?
Forgiveness is very tricky. Everybody wants to forgive because it feels good and it's just more uplifting than having revenge fantasies and grudges and hate and stuff like that. So the tendency is to want to jump to forgiveness because it feels better than feeling the feelings that often come with being hurt or betrayed or, feelings of anger and revenge fantasies and all that stuff. So I want to just say that when you trust yourself, you're going to be able to trust the importance of feeling your feelings fully and not jumping over them to forgive too fast, too soon, before you're ready. You can trust that the anger is there for a reason, like fear, like other emotions. They're not there for no reason. Trust they're there for a reason, that it's okay to feel them. They're not going to overwhelm, flood, and destroy you. You can feel them. And through the willingness to just let them be there and have their being, they change. They inevitably change. I mean, I could work with you right now and demonstrate that if you want. I don't know if we have time. But then you can ask yourself, am I ready to forgive? Some acts are unforgivable. You can't forgive them. But maybe you can forgive the person who did them because you understand they wouldn't have abused you if they hadn't been abused, and they wouldn't have been abused if their parents, these things cascade down the generations, and you can have some empathy or compassion. But forgiveness, it's tricky. It takes some time and some care to not do it too fast. I know for me in the past, I wanted to be a spiritual person. And so I wanted to forgive because that's what a spiritual person would do. But that was so toxic because I was enraged. And then then you're gaslighting yourself, actually, to use your great expression.
You're 79 3/4 as we do this interview.
Yes.
How proficient are you at this point in trusting yourself, given your history of not trusting yourself?
I'm much better at it. I also recognize the patterns of self-doubt so much. And it came up for me, actually. I wrote an email to somebody where I became vulnerable in the email, and I sent it. And it was somebody I admire and respect a lot. And then afterwards, I had this sort of wave of shame of, you shouldn't have pressed send. And all that self-talk of doubt. But I recognize it. It's so familiar. Mm-hmm. The feeling is familiar. Yeah. And I just thought, no, it's okay. Trust yourself. You did it. And sure enough, I got the most loving email back. But that sort of spinning out after it could have lasted for hours before. I could have beat up on myself for quite a while. That doesn't happen anymore at all. So the practice works, and I'll borrow a phrase from wonderful 12-step programs. It works if you work it.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to work it.
Yes.
And I feel we have a responsibility thanks to our human birth. It's very precious to be born a human being and to have this consciousness.
Another thing that is said, I think by the Buddha about this practice is that it's good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end.
Yes.
So even somebody listening who's just learning how to trust themselves,
it's
still
great.
good. Yes.
It's great. And it will bring benefits, at any point along the path.
I have two questions I usually ask toward the end. One is there something you were hoping that we might get to that we haven't gotten to?
No, maybe just how happy I am to be here doing this with you. I didn't know ahead of time what it would be like, and it's really, really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise. And you had to take an hour and a half Uber to get here.
I did.
We're going to have dinner afterwards. And so I'm grateful to you for dedicating this amount of time to do all of this. So thank you.
Well, I remembered that your talk was the only meditation and mindfulness talk that my grandson ever liked. Am I allowed to say why?
Yeah.
Because you dropped the F-bomb in that talk. I can't bring myself to say it when there's a camera. You said fuck. And he was 12, and he just loved it.
It's funny. I have a 10-year-old, and he hears me swear so much that he doesn't think swearing is cool. Because Daddy does it.
Because Daddy does
Yes.
it. It's embarrassing, and it's wrong.
Yes.
But for Owen, sitting in the front row, and you being up on a stage at UCLA to say it, liberation, freedom.
Yes. Well, I'm glad I could give that to Owen.
So yes, I would ride an hour and a half to see you.
Oh, thank you. Final question. Please just plug InsightLA or any other stuff that you're doing in the world or have written or website or whatever. People who want to get more from you, how can they do that?
I have a website. It needs updating. I would like it to eventually just have all my work on it offered for free for everybody to use, and that's my aspiration for it. It's trudygoodman.com. At least it has my calendar and recent things on it, and some guided meditations and blogs and stuff like that. I do want to plug InsightLA.
Please. It's an amazing organization.
A wonderful, wonderful place to learn mindfulness and self-compassion and meditation retreats they offer. And I have to say, I have mentored many of the teachers there, and they're wonderful. There was not a bad apple in the lot among the people that I had the honor of teaching and uplifting into their. I always wanted InsightLA to be a platform for other people to grow and become teachers. I didn't ever want to be the queen of it. It's not my nature. I find that embarrassing. So InsightLA, my website, I'm working on a book. I don't know. At this rate, it might be published posthumously, but when I say that, Jack gets really mad at me.
Will you come back on when the book comes out?
Yes, okay. I'd love to.
I'm planning to come to your 80th birthday party, which I got invited to. So
thank you.
Maybe we can even
thank you.
Do a conversation with me, you, and Jack.
That would be super fun.
Okay, that would be.
Yeah, Jack and I just put out a course on relationship, that was fun too.
Where is that available?
That would be available on my website and on Jack's website, jackcornfield.com.
Okay. I'm going to put links to all of these in the show notes for this episode so people listening can go check all of this stuff out.
Okay. And by the time this comes out, I'll make sure it's on my website. I'm not great at the self-promotion piece.
Well, I'm here to help. I'll dredge it out of you.
So thank you. Yeah. Jack's always been much better at that.
This has been a delight. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Me too. I've enjoyed it so much. I feel like I would have liked to listen to you more, but we're going to have a dinner.
Yeah. Yes. I talk enough.
Good.